Good afternoon, everyone. This is Andrew Kimmons with Kimmons Tool Works, and today is a big day. It's a very big day because I finally made a YouTube channel. I have been wanting to do it for close to 3 years now. I've had a lot of people tell me, hey, you should make a YouTube channel about your processes and things like that. And I've always thought it was a good idea. I'm always short on time, but I'm finally doing it this time. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew Kimmons, and I own and operate a small woodworking tool company, very small, one-man band here in Northwest Ohio, known as Kimmons Tool Works. You can find me on social media under Kimmons Hand Tools. I have a page on Facebook under Kimmons Hand Tools, also one on Instagram under Kimmons Hand Tools. So if you want to get a good idea of what I do, that's the easiest place to go. You can see pictures of all the different chisels that I make and all the different handle styles and you know, little peeks at the process here and there. But anyway, I have nearly 200 different styles of blade with never-ending handle combinations, literally endless handle combinations. So almost something for everybody, from framing chisels to socket tang beveled edge chisels to, you know, standard tang style beveled edge chisels, dovetail chisels, mortise chisels, framing chisels, just on and on and on. Just about any type of chisel you could want or need. Now, mind you, obviously being custom handmade with high-end materials and extremely advanced methods and processes by one guy, they are not the cheapest tools in the world, but that's not my goal. My goal is that, you know, 0.1% like me that wants something awesome, something that's made with care, something that has a feel to it unlike anything else. And like, you can buy plenty of off-the-rack tools for pretty cheap, but they just don't have that human touch to them. And I love quality. This is really what's led me into doing all this stuff, is because I have an obsession with quality, and especially with tools. I'm kind of a nut when it comes to tools, and or just anything in general. So that led me into doing what I do today, and I love it, and I would never change a thing. And I think the cool part about this video, one of the cool parts about it, is I'm going to share a little bit later on the very first working prototype chisel that I ever made. And I kind of had mixed feelings about it. My wife's been wanting me to share it for a long time, and I've been like, yeah, you know, but it's good to see where you come from, and everybody has to start somewhere. And I think that's another topic I want to get into a little bit today. But I wanted to just kind of start by saying I have a lot of interests, a lot of hobbies, a lot of things that fascinate me. All of the sciences, you know, I have a home library. I study infectious disease and health and nutrition and quantum mechanics, and just, it goes on and on and on. And I just have a lot of things that I'm fascinated in, and I like to kind of wrap interesting topics up with my day-to-day life and the things that I do, and I think can be a lot of fun, and not always just so focused on only a one-dimensional picture of life, because life can be very dynamic if you choose so. And I have never been one to, you know, spend a lot of time watching TV or playing video games or anything like that, and I nothing against people that love to do those things. I think if that's you, man, you do you, but it's not me. I am a very hands-on person, and I literally, I never stop. I from the time I was 8 years old, I've been obsessed with just learning, and learning to do things, learning to make things. And it's almost endless. It's like this unquenchable thirst for just being able to learn and do everything that I find interesting. And it's taken me a lot of places. I've worked in a lot of different industries, and I really started out in the pipeline industry for the most part. And my primary focus was in cathodic protection, like corrosion engineering. It's basically electrochemistry relating to the prevention of corrosion on pipelines, and that was a field that I really enjoyed. And I was also cross-functional, so I worked in telecommunications and, you know, a bunch of different things. I did electronics and plants and on and on and on. It was a lot of work, but I've also worked in the automotive industry. I've done a ton of different things. And largely because I like to learn. I like to do different things, extract knowledge from everywhere that I possibly can. And I've used a lot of that on what I do, because to be a one-man operation like this, it's not like you just know how to do this one thing or another. You know, I have to completely rebuild and maintain equipment. It goes far. But I just wanted to kind of share with everybody. I think I'll do it without further ado. This is the first chisel I ever made. And it's not so hot. And it was an 01 blade. Very rudimentary. And I didn't even have really the right tools and equipment to make this thing at the time. And that's not even the first handle that came in. That right there, that's the first handle that thing ever came in. It predated my ownership of a wood lathe. So that's kind of funny, but it come a long way. Now, you know, this is one of my personal socket tang chisels. This is the current model. Like if you order a chisel from me, it's gonna be this style unless you want something else. But for a beveled edge chisel, this is the base model, and this is just in regular maple. And I normally my handles are all pretty basic, pretty simple materials. Of course, you can get as crazy as you want to get. These are going to be mortise chisels. I've got some maple burls that are going to get done next week. I've got a bunch of ebony ones here. Excuse me. So the options are literally endless. I make everything in-house. Everything's heat treated in-house. Everything's machined in-house, designed in-house. You know, here's some sockets for these big, massive framing chisels. This is one of the things. I love these. I absolutely love these. These are for guys that make log cabins. And they're enormous. If you look at the size comparison between a framing chisel and a standard chisel, they're just absolutely enormous. So, and here's the associated socket that goes with one of those. Good comparison here, just so you can see how big that is. Very big chisels, so I make a very wide range of things. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about, well, how I got here. An experience that put me on this path. And it's not necessarily just one experience, but my daughter was born at 1 pound 6 ounces. We were in the hospital with her for 123 days. And both my wife and my daughter actually almost died. We're thankful we were as close to a university medical center as we were that could provide care for them as possible, or that they required. My wife had lost like 2 liters of blood. You know, they were going down. It wasn't very pretty. But through this, with a lot of the complications we'd had with my daughter, she's had heart surgery and eye surgery and a brain bleed and lung disease and all these developmental disorders and things like that, that thankfully at this point we have mostly overcome. She's 7 years old now. But even when we brought her home from the hospital, for the first year, she was on a heart monitor and oxygen, and we had to take that everywhere. Like if we had to go to the store, it's like we were lugging a heart monitor and oxygen and going everywhere. And I think what we've learned through that and through the associated struggles with dealing with a lot of the delays and stuff like that was sometimes failure is not an option. And that really just smacked us both in the face. And it took us to boundaries we didn't even know we had and blew through them, and it tested us in a way that was completely unique. And I have learned to apply those things in the entire rest of my life at this point. And I think that what a lot of people, particularly my age, need to know and need to hear is that just because the American dream now may be harder than ever to achieve, and it is, does not mean it's impossible. It's very possible if you have a vision and you have the drive to go for it and you go for it and you don't stop and you never accept failure, you will get wherever the heck you want to go. And it doesn't matter what you are. Somebody like me, I don't come from anything special whatsoever. You know, when we moved here, my daughter was born in Arizona. I'm from Arizona. I lived in Arizona for 27 years. When we moved here, I didn't know anybody. I mean, her family, but had no real advantage. I just had to kind of work crappy jobs and just scratch my way through and build something out of nothing and just make sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice to do it. So I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, I'm a self-made man that started out with shovels full of gold. You know, I literally, when I moved here, I had $400 because I had to take a year and a half off to spend with my wife and my daughter when my daughter was born. It took both of us. It took both of us working together. So I cashed in my 401k and spent most of that just on everything we went through. And so when we moved here, we had next to nothing. But it is possible if you never give up. And that's something I hope helps, you know, anybody out there, not just people in my age group, but there's a lot of people in my age group that don't see a way out possible, and they get stuck in their own habits, and they get stuck, well, I'm comfortable doing this, this is safe doing this, and like, yeah, but you can always do more, you can always push yourself further. So just never give up, you know. Even still now after doing this, it's not always easy. The amount that I've had to invest in tools and equipment and all the stuff, you know, it's been a very expensive endeavor. But to all of those out there that support me and keep coming back, I know 50% of my sales are in repeat customers, so you know that tells me I'm doing something right. So to all of those that out there that support me, I greatly appreciate it. You have helped me become somewhat kind of something from absolutely nothing. And that's the American dream, really. And you know, maybe the American dream was never easy, but it's certainly not easy now. I know the economy is really, when you look at the numbers, worse than it's ever been. You know, like anything else, one of the many things that I'm fascinated in is economics. And the funny thing is, when it comes to what they're calling, you know, inflation and stuff like that, they say, oh, you know, it's been worse before. Look back to, no, it really hasn't. What they did is they moved the goalpost. You have to realize that back then they would factor in things like fuel or like energy, housing, food. Those got factored into inflation. These days they don't. So they say, oh, you know, inflation is fill in the blank X percent. And it's like, yeah, it's only that because you removed literally most of what has inflated horrendously badly. So yeah, the economy is pretty bad, and a lot of people are down on themselves and don't see an out. So just never give up. Anyway, I'm not going to ramble on that too much longer. I want to get onto my honing tip. It's not really a tip. It's something that I discovered really helps me a lot and helped me. And that is this right here. And I know it's off-putting. A lot of people will be like, oh, no way, you're crazy. If you learn how to hone a straight razor and shave with a straight razor, you're going to learn honing on a totally new level, a level that you never, it just opens up a whole new dimension. It opens up a dimension of what it actually feels like. Because with a woodworking tool, like this chisel, for example, a cut is a cut is a cut. It's sharp or it's not sharp. And that's really all you got to go on. It's either it's cutting well or it's not. With a straight razor, it opens this whole new dimension of what it feels like on your face, which tells you that something can be sharp and still not be a good edge. Or something can be sharp and still not have edge retention. And what it allows you to understand the process on a micro level. And I will tell you, this kicked my butt for 2 years. I would say within the first 6 months or so, I was able to get 1 or 2 good edges out of 10. Then it took me about 2 years before I could get to the level where I'm at now, where I can get like 8 out of 10 good edges. And I still screw up a lot. There's some days where I'm just off and I can't make an edge on a straight razor to save my life. Because you can do everything. You can sit down for an hour and you can make the most perfect edge on a straight razor ever. And you think it's perfect. It looks perfect. Everything looks great. You can just touch a hair and it pops it right off in midair. And you're like, all right, this is perfect. Then you go shave with it and it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. It hurts, it goes dull, and like you shave one half of your face and it's dull. And it's telling you what's going on at the very edge of that. That sharp isn't just sharp. Because what you're doing in a lot of cases is the same thing like with a tool. Any edge pretty much works the same way. When you take a stroke on a stone, when you're already fully out to the apex, that last little bit will curl up. And then the longer you continue to hone it, the longer it's going to draw out all this jagged material that's everywhere. And it just really can tear up your face. Like the same with a tool. You hone a tool, you get a burr, you remove the burr. I have videos on my social media that'll show you about that. You remove the burr and then you continue to hone until the point where it's burr free and you're at the maximum apex, which that's going to be determined by the grain structure of the steel itself, largely. I am experimenting with something new. I'm very excited about. I have a new idea though that might be able to affect the actual peak end sharpness similarly to the grain structure. I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to try something new. But I know that you can see a lot of information out there on the internet and stuff like that where people say, oh, you know, you want the burr. The burr's your edge. It's you have to hone until you get a burr. And they act like the burr is the cutting edge, and it's totally false. It's just completely wrong. The burr is not your edge. The burr is not your edge. What's underneath the burr is your edge. It's the very apex of the steel. Like when you say, oh, you need the burr to cut. The burr's your cutting edge. What you're talking about is, rather than a perfect apex, that. You don't want that. That's not part of your cutting edge. You want that. And it's very important to make sure that that burr is gone and you're out to the apex. And this will teach you where too far is and where not enough is, and just where the sweet spots are. And all of these hone differently. And what you'll start to notice with a straight razor is you can take 3 different 8,000 grit stones, lay them all out in front of you, hone an edge on each one, and use it to shave, and each one of them feels completely different. Because 8K isn't just 8K is 8K is 8K. It doesn't work that way. They all yield different results. Like, I mean, depending on who you ask or whatever, you could consider a Belgian conical. They kind of consider it around 8K. That's my favorite stone for a straight razor, is a Belgian conical. It's a natural stone that is mined in Belgium in the Ardennes forest, and I think the Romans even discovered those a long time back. But so they've been around a very long time. That's my favorite stone to finish a straight razor on. You can actually hone with a conical from the ground up with a straight razor too, using some different methods. But if you take a conical, which some people consider kind of 8K, versus an 8K waterstone versus a Black Arkansas prepped to around 8,000, and you hone 3 different edges, you're going to have 3 totally different experiences. The conical will have a very smooth edge that's very resistant to cutting skin, very sharp, and the waterstones tend to be more aggressive. It's a very aggressive edge. You can, depending on your technique, you can still get a relatively smooth edge, not anywhere near like a conical. But if you look at a stone like a Black Arkansas, this really stands out the most for me, is if you hone a razor edge on a Black Arkansas, you are going to get an extremely sharp edge, very, very sharp edge, but and a very good quality edge. But generally, they're kind of bitey. You'll feel that they'll want to bite skin a lot more than a conical will, even though they may even be very similarly sharp. It's just that the profile that the Black Arkansas imprints into the steel is just very bitey. And that's about the only way I can describe it. I have cut myself more with black Arkansas edges than I ever have a conical edge. I don't know as if I've even ever cut myself with a conical edge. It's very hard to cut yourself with a good conical edge. But oddly enough, this is where different stones for different applications comes in. My favorite finishing, or what I might even consider post-finishing stone, is a black Arkansas for woodworking tools because of that bitiness. That bitiness is extremely advantageous in cutting wood. So different stones for different purposes. That 8K level isn't just 8K is 8K is 8K. All these different stones yield different properties, and that's something that straight razors will definitely help you discover if you're up for the challenge. A lot of people are terrified of it. Like, they've seen them in movies and stuff and they're super scary. They're not scary. You just have to learn, and you just have to be careful. But as always, you know you much better than I know you, so trust yourself. If you don't feel up to it and you don't particularly feel safe doing it, then don't do it. It's something that a very small number of people love, and I'm one of those people, and there's a lot of things like that that I love. I have so many different hobbies. But this is a good one to get you into it. And this is, you can get these, they're super cheap from, I think I got this over a decade ago. I don't know if you can even get it still, but from Wet Shaving Products, it's a razor called a Gold Dollar. This one's a GD208, and these, I don't think I even paid like 20 something bucks for this thing. And you can get them what they call shave ready. And that would get you into at least feeling what somewhat normal feels like. And that's not to say that it'll be the best edge ever, but it will work. And if it doesn't work, send it back. But this is a good place to learn for cheap and to get a feel, because you definitely don't want to be starting out on really nice blades, because you can really damage. These are very, very fine instruments. Like, for example, this one right here. This is a Wade & Butcher full concave. This is a 6/8, which is a 3/4 inch blade height. But if you look at how fine and delicate that is, that's an extra hollow ground. They call it, well, full concave is what they say. And honestly, I would not want to learn to hone on something like this, because I don't even know what the value of something like this would be. I've never even seen another one of these anywhere. It's a Wade & Butcher number 1130 6/8. Wade & Butcher, Sheffield, England, full concave. Anybody out there that's ever seen one of these, let me know. I've never seen one ever in my life. Very awesome blade, very unique for a Sheffield blade. And I wouldn't know what something like that would be worth, but I wouldn't want to destroy it. And I mean, some of these blades, you get up over $1,000 very easily. There's some of them that are, $700 to $1,000 for a lot of these vintage restored blades. That one's not restored. That's in the original handles even too. So you can get as deeply, like anything else. Another one of my little hobbies, something that I'm obsessed with, is I love mechanical watches. Sure, you can go to Walmart, you can get a quartz watch for $5. You can get a quartz watch for $30. There's something about, particularly, I'm a big fan of Swiss mechanical watches. I try and do everything USA made for 90% of the time, but there is something about Swiss mechanical watches. They're just very well made and very complex little machines, and very, very fascinating. And watchmakers and people that work on these mechanical watches are absolute masters at what they do. I mean, microscopic little parts all working together in unison to keep time at an extremely accurate degree these days. Like, for example, like this one right here, this is a Longines Hydro Conquest. This is one of my favorite watches that I own, and it's the mechanical one. And this is 1/4 of a second a day slow. And you think about doing all of that just with a machine, just how it's slowly distributing power out of a spring. It's very, very incredible what they can do these days. So that's another one of my little passions, but we'll get deeper into stuff like that in other videos. But I'm going to wrap it up right here before it gets too long, because if I start talking straight razors and watches now, it's going to just go on forever. But anyway, I hope everyone has a great day, and I hope you enjoy the video. And if you want to check out the tools, you can go look at my social media pages, Kimmons Hand Tools, on Facebook and Instagram. Or if you're interested, you can always send me an email at andrew@kimmonshandtools.com if you want to talk about, you know, some stuff, or you're interested in custom woodworking tools. So anyway, have a great day out there, and I will see you next time.